Welcome everyone. This is Mayor Scott Anderson. I want to welcome you all to our annual Faith Leaders Summit. This is somewhat different this year. We're usually in person over at the Southeast Regional Library. This year we're doing it virtually. So welcome. This morning we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance being led by Councilmember September. I'll join us with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I did it.
We jinxed you.
Yep. Thank you all. Our invocation this morning will be by Councilmember Spence.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today so that we may collaborate and find new ways to share your love and grace during these challenging times. I ask that you give us the hope and wisdom that will allow us to embrace our differences and bring our communities together with the understanding that we are all equal. I pray that we will find new relationships and opportunities that will help pave the way for a more loving, respectful, and peaceful existence in our society. And I pray for our health and for the health of our friends and families. Share our love and support for those who have suffered loss during this pandemic. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Again, welcome to our annual Faith Summit. Probably first thing you've noticed is there are a lot of changes. The council members that are here this morning have not participated in a past Faith Summit as a council member. You're all new, so do this. So we've changed, but more the things change, more they seem to stay the same, I guess. But we have this morning, as we usually do in each of the Faith Leaders Summit, we try to establish kind of a theme to talk about and give you an opportunity to also share your thoughts with us. The real intent of this summit is to share information with you and have you share information with us. The faith leaders in Gilbert are the bedrock of our community. You are the ones working with our families, and as you all know, the family is very important in our community. We're a family-oriented community. We've been recognized as one of the best communities in the entire nation to raise a family. So thank you for all the work that you do. As I said, the purpose of the summit is to stimulate thought, and we want to do that with a general topic. We like to share with you what we have that's going on in the town, but there's a lot of other things that we know that you're out in the community that you know about, and in general, in the topic that we're going to be discussing this morning, if you'd like to talk about that, that is certainly appropriate, or if you have other issues or thoughts that you'd like to share with us. This morning, what I'd like to do to start off, our general topic today is what I call unity through diversity. And I'd like to, a few weeks ago, in light of all things that are happening around the country, and we've even seen it here in the Valley, we want to address the topic of unity, of diversity, of inclusion. And I want to read, to get started this morning, before I ask our town manager for an update on what's happening in the town, I'd like to read a portion of a statement that was released by the town by me several weeks ago, which gives you an idea of what kind of work we're talking about this morning. The statement in part says, "These are not always easy conversations, and different opinions may be expressed, but one thing should be absolutely clear. We condemn racism and discrimination of any kind, and we strongly believe in the opportunity to engage in constructive and respectful dialogue, no matter the topic. This open, honest dialogue has the power to help unify our community and understand where our areas of need and action exist. The town council is working on a way to create dialogue for understanding and pave the path forward for Gilbert." And that's part of the discussion we want to have this morning. We are interested in hearing from you in ways that we can go forward on this general topic and how we can address that in the community. But what I'd like to do now is give our town manager the opportunity to take a few moments to discuss things that are happening in the town that may interest you. Patrick?
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone. Unfortunately, not in person this year, but I look forward to next year when we'll get this group back together and continue our dialogue, ongoing dialogue about how we can build a better Gilbert together. I've got some updates for you on the town, items of interest and note. There's been a lot of change in the last 12 months. I'll try to hit some highlights, but as always, I know all of you know how to reach me, so if you'd like to talk about anything further, I'm always happy to talk to you and discuss things in greater detail. I'll go to the next slide. We ranking, it seems like every other week we get a ranking recognizing some aspect of our quality of life, and we're very proud of that, and you are a big part of that. Some ones of note this year is we were once again affirmed by the FBI as the second safest city in the US, over 100,000 in population. Money Magazine ranked us the 46th best place to live in the United States. And it didn't make this list, but just here right recently, we were ranked as having the second best economic recovery or economic performance through this pandemic period, which is a real testament to the strength of this community, the strength of our business community, and everybody who plays a part in making those kind of rankings possible. The next slide, Valerie. Last night, we opened up the second phase 1B of our Gilbert Regional Park down at the intersection crossroads at Higley and Queen Creek Road. If you haven't visited yet, it's an absolutely beautiful facility. We just added sport courts, a large event lawn and lake, and an amphitheater to the park. We will start a series of festivals and events, movies in the parks, concerts, beginning on Friday of this week. So if you'd like to learn more about that, go to the town's webpage and you can register to come see a concert, come watch a movie in the park with your family, with friends. It is absolutely beautiful, and we have great work done by our Parks and Recreation team and our capital projects group that help bring these to fruition. Next slide, Valerie. Growth and development. Northrop Grumman, formerly Orbital Sciences, continues to grow in Gilbert. They are adding 240,000 square feet to their campus in Gilbert, which we were very pleased to see. Sometimes with corporate mergers, there is a reduction in space and a consolidation in locations. We were very worried about Gilbert maintaining its status as one of their main satellite design and assembly facilities. We were thrilled to see them make a huge investment in the campus with the addition of the 240,000 square feet, and that is underway right now, the construction of those projects. Our two universities are performing very well. The University of Arizona's College of Nursing increases. It's expected to hit 150 students by spring of 21, and Park University estimates that they're at 400 students right now this fall. So both performing very well and plugging a much needed gap in higher education needs for our community. Next slide, Valerie. The Heritage District continues to see development. The Bayou Creole Kitchen opened up. Clever Koi reopened from their kitchen fire. The CoLab building, which is 3 levels of office and 1 level of retail, which is behind Oregano's and Hale Theater, has been completed, and we've got more restaurants about to open up. We recently are about to adopt new Heritage District design guidelines, and the 2020 general plan for the town of Gilbert on the whole was adopted overwhelmingly by the voters at the August primary election. Next slide, Valerie. COVID-19, I know that nothing has defined 2020 more than this pandemic. And even though we are performing very well, it has had some major impacts on our organization and our community and the lives of individuals in our community as well as our businesses. And boy, it pretty much cleared the board for us in regards to all the plans we had scheduled for this year and what we needed to do to respond. So I'll walk you through very quickly what we did as an organization, and it moved quick. There was ever evolving information on this pandemic. It was a new virus, still understanding its characteristics, how it transmits, its fatality rates. And We understood from the very beginning communication was going to be key to our workforce as well as our residents to guide our way through this. We first started with the Joint Information Center to start collecting information from the various sources at the state and federal levels to understand what we needed to do. Started talking to our employees as things developed and the pandemic really started to hit in Arizona with a pretty strong force. And then we officially opened up our Emergency Operations Center and started moving. In March, it became evident that the governor was going to order a closure of certain businesses and industries in the state to try to stop the spread. And the town of Gilbert, within a 24-hour period of time, the mayor issued an emergency declaration ordering the closure of town buildings. And less than 24 hours later, we had them closed and that workforce transitioned into a remote work environment. And all of that focused on the need for continuity of operations, that the critical services that we deliver cannot go down: water treatment, wastewater treatment, solid waste collection, public safety personnel, and responding to 911. So we developed plans to mitigate exposure to our workforce to the greatest extent possible to keep them safe so we can continue to deliver those critical services to our community. And the next slide, Valerie. We also developed 4 teams as the pandemic continued to drag on, and we continue to learn more about it. We wanted to have some focused efforts in the areas of greatest need. So Team 1 was Gilbert Business support to understand what we need to do to help our businesses through this period of time, where we can be lax with some of our code requirements around signage and other items to help them through this process. Team 2, the reopening of town facilities and programs with the understanding that the pandemic will eventually lessen its grip and hold on us, and we need to develop a plan of how we reopen these buildings and start phasing employees back into the facilities, but continue to be mindful and mitigate the impacts and the potential transmission of the virus to our workforce. Team 3, we call it the Innovation Lab and the Evolution of Government. You know, one thing that this pandemic created was disruption and innovation on a scale that I haven't seen in my career in government, and I think the private sector saw something similar. But the necessity to deliver services digitally and deliver them in ways that we had not delivered them before, or we weren't going to be able to deliver them, absolutely drove a mindset and a call to action like I've never seen. And we wanted to capture all of these activities that we're doing and evaluate their effectiveness, because a lot of these have proven to be even more efficient, even more effective, and this needs to be the new model moving forward. And so those efforts continue. We have innovation hours twice a month with our workforce. It involves employees at all levels of the organization, and we're going to try to hold on to that mindset and keep disrupting the way we do things to the benefit of our citizens and businesses. And then Team 4, COVID-19 cost recoveries. We do have a lot of costs associated with PPE materials, disinfectant, additional levels of disinfecting our buildings, and there are various federal and state agencies that allow for reimbursement of those funds. So we're making sure we're tracking all of that so we can recoup as much of those costs as possible. Next slide, Valerie. External facing support. The Office of Digital Government really sprung into high gear to try to disseminate information on this to our community as quickly as we possibly could. Our governor and the State Department of Health was really the tip of the spear on this, and having to make decisions very quickly. At the beginning, it felt like things were changing on an almost hourly basis. They were certainly changing on a daily basis. We did everything we could to get information out to our community just as quickly as we could. We built a COVID-19 webpage, which is a hub for just about everything related to the pandemic, with additional links where you could go to get information. We created a data dashboard, which we continue to update, and I'll show you a highlight in just a couple slides later. That's got real-time data and links to the state departments of health and other sources, so you can understand specifically how this may impact you, right down to the zip code and things you can do as an individual and family. We created a text alert system with more than 12,000 subscribers that we were pushing information out to daily. Again, as information became available to us, we wanted to get that into the hands of our residents. just as quickly as possible. And we actually received a national award from the Center for Digital Government for Gilbert's COVID-19 response, and the State Department of Administration, which oversees all other agencies at the state level government, took our model and used it as the baseline for their approach and how the state agencies should respond to this pandemic as well. So very proud of our team that worked on that. The data dashboard that I mentioned on our open data portal, Alex, has got real-time data around zip code and the virus impact and current transmission rates by zip code, fire and rescue, police, public works, Parks and Rec, and a Help Gilbert map or Help Gilbert businesses, ways that you can actively do things to help our businesses, especially our restaurants that are struggling through this period in time. I would encourage everybody to visit that. We also partnered with the ASU to do sampling of our wastewater and the amount of virus, COVID-19 virus found in our wastewater, so we could understand if we were having plumes of breakouts of greater severity in portions of our city that may signal a need to take additional action in those areas. It's ongoing today. It's been a great resource for us, and it is tracked very closely with the information by zip code and where breakouts are occurring and what we're seeing in the wastewater. So we're continuing to work on that and learn as much as we can so that we can use that as a viable tool into the future. Next slide, Valerie. The organizational impact, next slide. So we took a look at activity in our community during this period of time to understand, because at a staff level, we felt like we're as busy as we've ever been, if not busier, with the workload that we always have managing a community of this size, the growth that's occurring in this community, and the additional workload placed on us by the pandemic. And so comparing development data, residential and commercial, March and September of 19 to March and September of 20, it's almost an across the board increase in all areas. We feel very blessed that we continue to see investment and activity in this community, which creates jobs and keeps economic activity moving. We see no signs of that slowing down. In fact, the residential market continues to heat up. Home builders cannot keep pace with the demand for housing. So again, great stats, ones that we're very pleased to see where other parts of the country are not as fortunate as we are to see the type of economic activity we're seeing, and we continue to monitor that on a weekly basis. Next slide, Valerie. We also approached this fiscal year from a budgeting standpoint to make sure that we were responsive to the unknown impacts that the virus would have on our revenues and ability to deliver services. And we developed a tiered approach by category so that we didn't expend dollars that we weren't sure were going to be sustainable into the future. Gilbert always takes a very conservative approach with building our base budget and making sure that we don't overestimate revenues. In fact, we underestimate revenues and then we underallocate the expenses towards those revenues. So we're always in a position to be very flexible and very responsible and able to respond to things that happen during a fiscal year. So the council on Tuesday of this week, we had our October check-in, the second of our two check-ins, to look at our revenue streams, how sustainable they were, have an assurance that we believe they were sustainable, and then begin move forward in using fiscal year 21 budget allocations so that we can keep up on service level demands and projects that need to move forward. Next slide, Valerie. And from a revenue standpoint, this is what our sales tax revenues look like. This is the bulk of the funding that provides and pays for Gilbert services. April and May, or I'm sorry, the April sales tax collected in May was our hardest hit month. That's when the businesses were closed by the governor. Sales tax was down 1% in Gilbert. Since that time, from May on, we are seeing 7, 9, 11% double-digit increases from last year's budget. The October receipts that we're getting in now currently stand at 5% over last year's October budget or October revenues, and we haven't finished all of our collections. So we're seeing very, very strong, stable, sustainable revenue streams in our community. Next slide, Valerie. State shared sales tax, we actually budgeted a 7% decline in this number. Now, again, not knowing what was going to happen and having to make those decisions in early June. we are actually seeing a 10% increase over last year's collections. So again, very strong collections from the state as well. Next slide, Valerie. State shared income tax, this comes in even over the 12-month period, so we can accurately project exactly what this number will be. And it is fiscal year 21 revenue is going to be 36.3 million. That is over last year's revenues of 32.1 million. So again, very strong numbers from state shared income tax. And then the council formed the Council Cares Act subcommittee. Next slide, Valerie. And this was to allocate the $29.2 million in CARES Act funding we received from the governor to assist people in crisis and businesses in crisis and use it for public safety needs. Subcommittee was formed of Vice Mayor Kaprowski, Councilmember September, and Councilmember Yentez. Councilmember Yentez served as the chair of this subcommittee. The areas of focus was nonprofit assistant, parks and recreation, business assistant, and emergency operations. Next slide, Valerie. This is the breakdown of how the funds are allocated. I'll go into more details on each of the programs, but about $18 million was allocated for businesses and nonprofit assistance. I'm sorry, $20 million between nonprofit assistance and business assistance. Next slide, Valerie. For the nonprofit assistance, these are the areas that the funds were allocated to the nonprofit agencies in our community and in our region serving people that have been impacted by it. We would love to have your help in getting messaging out. If you know people that are in need of assistance, whether it be housing, rent support, utility payments, food, please help us get the word out that we've allocated dollars to our nonprofits. Melanie Dykstra, who I know most of you know, would love to talk to you and help get the word out so we can get to those people in need. Next slide, Valerie. And then for business assistance, 3 primary areas. Business relief grants, the subcommittee and the council approved $11 million for business relief grants. For business recovery loans, they allocated $5 million. And for business resiliency, they allocated $2 million. Dan Henderson from our Economic Development Department led this effort for the town. Dan would also love to have your help in getting information out there, businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic, so we can assist them in filling out applications and getting them relief dollars just as quickly as we can. Again, Dan Henderson, anything you can do to help us communicate and get this message out there would be greatly appreciated. And then the AZ Cares, put $400,000 into discounted programming for parks and recreation to our Gilbert families. During the pandemic, parks and recreational activities were one of the hardest hit municipal areas, and the council, we had to shut down a lot of our programs and access to our programs to help stop the transmission of the virus. We have opened those back up with some approaches around safety and again, ensuring that people can recreate and participate, but not get unnecessarily exposed to the virus. But we've got some discounted programming available if you'd like to participate in that. Robert Carmona, our Parks and Rec Director, would be happy to talk to you about that and get you to where you need to go to access it. Next slide, Valerie. And then public safety, we are still evaluating $8 million of the fund to expand our dispatch center. It is desperately needed. Our police department, as our community grows, that service level is getting a lot of pressure on that. We've got to expand some facilities to handle the volume of 911 calls that come in. So we are looking at and sharpening our pencil on the numbers for that construction project. And a request will come forward to council at some point in the near future to use $8 million of those funds for public safety and this expansion of dispatch. Next slide, Valerie. And then news and events. Through all of this, I think we've forgotten that this year is our centennial year, and certainly not what we anticipated and how we were going to celebrate it. It's just unfortunate, and so many plans, so many great things that we had, and so many of you had to celebrate 100 years of our existence, to look forward to the next 100 years. It's been derailed, but we are going to press on. We've got some revised approaches to our annual Gilbert Days celebration. Valerie, if you want to go to our next slide. We are having a shoebox parade and contest. So we'd like to encourage all of you, especially children, to get involved. And there's more information. We're just starting to push out information on this. We're going to have a virtual shoebox parade and a contest for the submittants. We've also got some concerts in the park scheduled, and some dance showcases along with other items. I'd encourage everybody to go to the website listed on the screen and learn more about how we will celebrate our annual centennial, or our annual parade, as well as our 100-year centennial to the best extent we possibly can. Next slide, Valerie. And that is it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That's a lot to take in. One thing that I might note is that Patrick didn't mention is we were recognized here just recently as one of the fastest recovering economies in the country, the larger cities. So kudos to everyone that has kept Gilbert right up there with keeping our economy strong. As I mentioned, we want to be the example I mentioned unity and diversity, and we want to be the example in our organization. And we've asked Nathan Williams, who's our Chief People Officer, to talk a little bit about this and what we're doing internally in Gilbert to address unity and diversity. Nathan.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mayor, Council, all the guests that we have attending today. I appreciate the opportunity. I will be brief here. Can everybody see my presentation first off?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So as Mayor Anderson mentioned, I'm the Chief People Officer. I oversee our people team, or also known as the Human Resources Department for the town, and everything that goes into those areas of support. I wanted to talk a little about our goal for the year. We have an organizational-wide goal focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then talk a little bit about some of the groundwork efforts we've made so far to really build this, recognizing that to be a diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization is certainly not a one-year effort. It will be an ongoing, continuous effort for the duration of our existence, but we wanted to do some things that are foundational and help us to really build a culture and continue to build upon the culture that exists, that is in many ways an inclusive culture today, but continue to grow from that and learn from it. So first and foremost, to talk a little about the goal, we use, it kind of comes from the Franklin Covey world, wildly important goals, which are defined as an X to Y by when. So the way we sort of mapped this out this year was we have an engagement survey that we roll out to our employees twice a year. And this year we decided, on this most recent survey in August, we decided to add a question or a statement that says, I feel a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion is important for the town of Gilbert, and give people an opportunity to either disagree, agree, or some factor in between with that statement. We had 80% of respondents that gave an agree rating. And so obviously we feel that gives us some significant room for improvement. So we decided to move that needle by our next engagement survey that we will roll out in March. We want to see 3% movement to those number of people that agree. And obviously there's a lot more than just how people answer a survey that goes into that. We're trying to sort of assess and gauge people's belief in and the value they place in diversity, equity, and inclusion within our organization. And so it really comes down to a variety of factors that we feel will assist us in this effort. First and foremost, we started quite some time ago, several months back, and we will continue on with the effort to solicit feedback. So as many of you may know, our former mayor led listening sessions for the community. And this had to do at the time with policing and racism, especially in the wake of a lot of unrest in communities across the nation that had to do with policing and concerns around racism. So those listening sessions were held. We then did some internal things. Patrick led, he had led a series of town halls to really make sure he was connecting with employees across the organization in this sort of strange new remote work environment. And specifically held a town hall where he invited Chief Solberg in, and they talked about humane policing and how we ensured that was taking place in our community. We also launched a survey. We asked staff specifically for feedback around diversity, equity, and inclusion concerns, and we gathered that data. We formed a discussion group, and we asked for volunteers within staff to participate in this discussion group to talk about, issues that exist today. How are we doing? Where are we winning? What can we do better? And then the decision was made that we don't know what we don't know, and we really wanted to ensure that we were leaning on experts. And so we had the opportunity we've just brought on some consultants that are also going to be assisting in this effort. And the thing that I think is really cool about these consultants is they specialize in DE&I, but they also specialize in organizational and human psychology. And we thought that was a big part of it, was going to be, sometimes there's a little bit of a heart and mind shift that needs to take place when it comes to people valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion within organizations and communities. So for one of the initial steps as well, we've been focused on educating and developing our staff. One of the big items that we jumped on right away was adopting a pretty dynamic unconscious bias training program. So we have been rolling that out to leaders across the organization, and we expect by I think mid-November, we should have the majority of leadership through the unconscious bias training. We also will be rolling out at the start of November some shorter digital learning modules around unconscious bias training for our frontline staff. And then we'll have a lot of continuous tools in place that are intended to reinforce the learning, the training that they've been through, but also to continue to just put these topics front and center for people to be considering and kind of reading up on, educating themselves on. And then, when we talk about timelines, as I mentioned, this is not, we don't see our effort around diversity, equity, and inclusion as, anything short term. It's not to appease the kind of social movement. This is really something we want to do for the duration and the long term. And so we've got some things, as I mentioned, in place now. As we kind of continue through this life cycle of working to drive a deeper cultural change here, there will be obviously continued goals that'll be put in place. We'll be working on a strategic roadmap that'll have a lot of kind of near, mid, and long-term goals tied to it that will hopefully impact, staff and mindsets, and then we will work in any way we can or have the opportunity to support the community in that regard as well. So that's it, really. I mean, I wanted to give a brief overview. If you have any questions, there's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have a continued dialogue and make myself available to do just that.
Thank you, Nathan. And just as a housekeeping item, we will have the opportunity for a little bit of discussion here, which is the time after our keynote speaker to either ask questions or and you'll be able to do that with us here online for a few minutes. The other thing, what we usually do also during this summit is introduce one another when we're here, and it's really probably something that we're not going to be able to do today since this is all virtual. But I think if you're interested in who's actually attending, who's present today, tuning in, we have that list. And Valerie, can we make that available to everyone?
Sure.
The contact Valerie Schaefer in our office here in the council. You can get a list of the attendees if you're interested in making contact with those who are attending today. Let me now introduce our keynote speaker, which we're very, very happy to have with us today. Pastor Andre Miller, who is the senior pastor of New Beginnings Christian Church here in Gilbert. Pastor Miller is a native of Detroit, Michigan. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army and was the first African-American police chaplain for the Apache Junction Police Department. And he is also a member of the East Valley NAACP Legal Redress Committee And I know Pastor Miller's been involved on a lot of other committees and boards also. We recognize him for that great service in the community. Pastor Miller, we're happy to have you.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here.
Go right ahead.
All right. So the first thing, again, good morning, Mayor, council members, and all attendees. The environment I believe that we find ourselves in at the moment is, for me, actually one of hope and promise, because I truly believe as Americans, we all can rise to the occasion. The occasion that I speak of is a nation where its true ideals are actually realized by each inhabitant, regardless of their race, regardless of their religious background, regardless of their socioeconomic status. When we look at the town proper of Gilbert, we do not see many of the wide-ranging issues that are prevalent throughout other Valley cities, but you can be assured that these issues will become rampant as we continue to grow even in Gilbert. Growth for any town, as we all know, brings about a different mindset, different cultures, different thoughts on how citizens should be governed, how resources should be used, and even how people are policed. I remember when I first started working for the town of Gilbert, and I shared this with members of the council, and I was a meter reader. Someone called the police stating that there was an African-American male in their neighborhood. I clearly, at the time, I had on a city shirt. I was driving a city vehicle that was parked on the corner, and it should have been visible to anyone what I was doing. But for this one individual on this particular day, my skin color appeared to be a threat during the course of my assigned duties. That is something, and that is a mindset that all of us here in this summit must tackle. As citizens, it's something we definitely have to tackle, and definitely also as a body of believers. As I see fellow pastors and servants here in this platform, again, there is so much hope and so much promise for a better future, a better Gilbert, a better United States. But that will only come if all of us here, again, in this forum, in this platform, are willing to do the heavy lifting and willing to do the hard work. If we can be honest, the differences that we all have are not as great as the similarities we all look at in the mirror every single day. Racism in America is unique and different than most other industrialized nations. Many people in America have no shame in racist ideologies, as if they are proper and have an appropriate role in society, when we all know actually they do not. If you think about Germany and all that it endured under the Nazi regime, you'll notice there are no memorials or monuments for those who transgressed against humanity. But in America, that's not so. We often glamorize people's achievements, although some achievements have been on the backsides of those who are and have been marginalized. That is a reality that we have, and a reality that we all must face. And those are hard conversations that we should have in order for us to truly have healing. Those conversations are never about making anyone feel guilt, but those conversations are about making us be better and grow closer into this idea of what America actually should be for all of its inhabitants, especially those in the household of faith. I have a distinct honor of serving the church actually in Mesa that is diverse, because if we all can be honest in this forum, we know that church is the most segregated place in the country on a Sunday. But I have the unique honor of serving a church where I have white congregants, Black congregants, Hispanic congregants, and even an occasional Asian couple that comes in. And that gives me hope and joy for what we can actually have as a global community. I'm blessed because I understand with my church, it reminds me, or it allows me to know that in heaven, there won't be any sections. In heaven, you won't have a Black section, you won't have a white section, there won't be a Lutheran section, there won't be a non-denomination section, there won't be a Pentecostal section with everybody running around. It will all be us collectively together as children of God, rejoicing without regard of race or color. So I know and confidently trust that those things can be achieved as long as all of us right here, right now, are willing to do the heavy lifting, to take bold steps and make sure that no one feels out of place. I had a conversation with a council member about the town of Gilbert and was asked if it was really a problem in Gilbert. And the answer I gave was, if one person in Gilbert feels uncomfortable based off their race, we all have a problem. It is all of our duties to make sure that we press for a greater Gilbert, a Gilbert where all are welcome and encouraged to be their best selves. The Bible tells us in John, the 13th chapter, and the 34th verse, so now I am giving you a new commandment, love each other, just as I have loved you, you should love each other. This requisite from the Savior is often absent today, but needs to be at the forefront of who we are as a body of believers and a faith community and leaders in the town of Gilbert. Partisan ideals have caused us often to abandon our love. And today I challenge everybody in this forum to get reacquainted with the love that has been missing. I challenge you today to make sure that your neighbor is not just the one who looks like you, but the one who is shouting on Gilbert and Warner with every part of their being that they need help. I challenge you today to embrace someone who's had a struggle that's different from yours, understanding that lighting another person's candle does not dim your light. I challenge you all today to know that there is work to be done, and it is up to us, those present right now, to be atmosphere changers and to make the world, and starting in Gilbert, a better place. I encourage you to start with the person in the mirror. If you're married, start with the person laying next to you. If not, start with the next person that you come in contact with throughout the day. It is very important, and again, this is a faith summit. Those of us who are the household of faith, it is very important that we become atmosphere changers, not just in our homes, but in the town of Gilbert. There's so much to be done, and we can be a true model for change, diversity, inclusion, being anti-racist. We can do all of those things, again, if we commit ourselves to doing it on a constant and a daily basis. Is it a hard thing to do? Yes. But call me optimistic, because I believe that each and every one of us has the ability, the fortitude, and the strength to get these simple things done, which starts with just loving our neighbor.
Thank you. What a powerful message. Thank you so much, Pastor Miller. Like you said, it all begins in our faith community. That's why we do this. And the next few minutes, those of you in attendance, this is the opportunity that where you can participate. If you have questions or if there are comments you'd like to make, please use the down on the toolbar. I think you can use either the chat icon or the raise your hand. Is that the other one, Valerie? You can raise your hand if you'd like to speak directly. So we'll give you the next 5 or 10 minutes. If there are any questions or comments, we welcome those at this time.
There should be a hand or a palm next to your name that you can click to raise your hand. You can also just enter your name into the chat if you'd like to speak.
That's true for the council members that are here too. If you'd like to make any comments.
So we do have a question in the chat. So I guess a question to Mayor and Council. How can we encourage you? I'll unmute the person who said it in case they want to elaborate.
I'd like him to expand on that if you could.
Hey there, this is Pastor Joel here with the Bridge Church in Gilbert. And yeah, you've given us a lot of information. I would just love to know how we can encourage you and support you in your role and just as individuals.
Well, I think the most important thing you can do, Joel, is to do what you're doing with your congregation. The community, as I mentioned, the bedrock of this community is really our families, and our families are generally members of congregations. And so, you know, messages like what Pastor Miller has is something we need to share with our congregations. This is something that will help in the community. And we certainly, as you can see, what we're trying to do here internally in the town, what Nathan have shared with us show that we want to lead out also here in the town, in the organization, and that's what we'll continue to do. And we look forward to the encouragement that you give to not only us, but your congregants.
Can I add to that, Mayor?
Yes.
Great. I would say to pray for us. Pray for us and our families. We're in this year 2020, we're dealing with so many issues and so many challenges that we've never dealt with before. I'm new to council, so it's all new to me. But like you, we spend a lot of time away from our families in this role of service. And if you can pray for our families as well, so that while we're away, you know, they're comforted. And I think prayer is powerful. And I think prayer works. So that's a way where you could all support your council and mayor, and you can mention it from the pulpit on Sundays. I think that would be one of the most powerful ways that you could support this mayor and council.
Yes.
This is Kathy Toki. One of the things that I think would be very important for us as a community is you all have unique congregations, and within those you have people who may be hurting, who may feel disconnected, and for you to identify that and then bring that to us so that we can help from a community standpoint. But also we want to make sure that we have the resources to provide you, that you can provide those people that you are coming in contact with.
I'm Councilmember Bill Spence. I'm always looking for new ways to establish conduits for communications and listening. That's something that we have worked over the last several months to increase that. A question both to council and to the people that are online here. Do you see other ways that maybe we are not utilizing to our best ability to improve our listening and communication, such as the messaging that we have, some of which is there and effective, but not necessarily distributed as best as we can. And some of it is just to encourage a even more robust, detailed dialogue. Are there ways that you would recommend to us that we can better communicate and listen on a daily basis? And back at you, is there anybody that thinks of what you can do to help us get out our messaging of listening and concern?
I don't know if it's to reply, but we did have a hand raised by Ron Derrick.
Okay.
Hello, council members. Ron Derrick here. I'm the stake president of the Gilbert, Arizona Santan stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I wanted to thank you for another summit. I've enjoyed these for many years. I also want to thank Pastor Miller for his comments today. They were spot on. Just thank you for your dedicated service. And just for the council members, I want you to know that our family keeps you in our prayers and has actually been in our prayers this last week. One thing that happened to me, just knowing that Gilbert is such, in a lot of these communities are so tremendously white in so many ways. When all the unrest was happening throughout the U.S. and also many other nations and their governments, I started to engage some training for myself just on unconscious bias. So I saw the town was bringing this up, and it really benefited me tremendously to identify some of my own unconscious bias. And I passed that around to some members of my own stake here, and it's been very beneficial. I think one thing we can do is to engage this idea of unconscious bias. It really was quite an eye opener, and I really enjoyed that. But it, as part of a large faith community here, I think this is one way that we really can get more information out to our people to identify what's happening inside the heart. Because the unity that we're seeking really as we love God and love one another, that type of unity, I think, will start to evolve, and it will help to minimize so much of the bias and the decision making that's made on that bias very frequently. But Pastor Miller, thank you for your comments today, and that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, President Derek. Other comments, questions?
Mayor, I would really like to explore that unconscious bias training, and hopefully we would be able to participate with it as well. But and listening to Pastor Miller and just the thoughts that I've been having over these last months, I really think that that's where we need to start, is kind of understanding what is bias and how does that impact all of us if we're going to be having a community conversation. I would like to see that expanded.
Good.
So we did get a question, does the faith community have any current joint efforts that support the city?
Someone's going to talk about that here in a few minutes.
Yes. That's going to come up in just a couple of minutes.
The answer is yes.
Yes. Matter of fact, we're very sensitive to your time, and we're moving on towards the hour of keeping you. So what I'd like to do, unless there are any other questions out there, is move on to a couple of other items. Other things that we do in this summit is give the opportunity for community members to share information with you that you may not be aware of, that may help you in your efforts in our faith community. And we'd like to first turn the time over to Tyler Hudgens, who is a member of the Redemption Church Gilbert. He's also was a longtime member on our redevelopment commission, was a recent council candidate. Tyler's very active in the community, and he has some information he'd like to share, which addresses that very question we had just a second ago. Tyler.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you today. I just posted a website URL called gilbertfaith.com in the comment section. Feel free to go there. We are currently in the process of forming a group called Gilbert Faith. Just thank you so much to Mayor Scott Anderson and the Gilbert Town Council for being supportive of this. When I was running for Gilbert Town Council, I had approached my pastor. I'm in the young adults ministry at Redemption. And I said, hey, we're always doing stuff in Chandler. How come we don't do anything in Gilbert? And my pastor replied, he said, we are Redemption Gilbert. We should probably be doing some more stuff in Gilbert. And he said, but to be honest with you, I just don't know how to get involved or what's needed or who to talk to. And I said, well, I can help you with that. I've been involved with the town for 12 years. And we actually had a volunteer project we were going to support in April. We're going to bring 30 volunteers, and COVID-19 hit. And so that project wasn't able to get forward. But it put a vision in my heart of what I saw a need in the community, especially for the faith community. And putting together Gilbert Faith, a group of leaders, the hope would be to have a quarterly meeting. We're hoping to have our first one in January, and to lean into a few issues. So there's three issues that come to mind right away. We have For Our City Gilbert, which is an organization within the town where there's a lot of opportunities to serve. And so we want to lean into that, hopefully, through these quarterly meetings, be sharing how congregations can support that. The second thing would be rapid response. There are many opportunities that I think if the faith community was connected, that we could respond when we have a COVID-19 situation, which is unprecedented. How can we coordinate our efforts in the faith community to support the town and the needs of the residents here? And then with Gilbert and Warner, with the situation that's occurred there, as a church, we're called to be peacemakers. So how can we help de-escalate that situation before it results into violence? And cost the town over $700,000. And so the third item is domestic violence. Gilbert does not have a murder issue, but underneath the surface, something that we do see is domestic violence. And this spoke to me personally. I went on a couple of mission trips to Guatemala last year and got to serve and minister to some girls down there. And those girls kind of became like my daughters. And so just imagining women going through these situations, how can we, as the faith community, respond and support what the town's doing to solve this issue that's in our community? And so these are kind of the main things that just came to mind for me. This would be a multi-faith effort, which is basically born out of interfaith. Typically what we see, though, in interfaith is the more conservative ends of the faith spectrum tend to not participate. And then you have people in the middle saying, well, we all agree. But multi-faith is, hey, we're all going to come to the table, and we may have different viewpoints and we may have disagreements theologically in different ways, but we all live in Gilbert, and Gilbert is the place that we call home. And how can we serve and support what's going on in our own community? And so if you're interested in being a part of this, like I said, gilbertfaith.com, it's in the comment section. There is a form on that website. Feel free to fill out that form with your information. 10 of us just recently met to kind of start forming some of this. And so we would really love for you to drop your information in there so we can share when that first quarterly meeting is coming up. So thank you so much for your time, Mayor Anderson and the town council and everyone who's attended this call today.
Thank you, Tyler. I said this last part of the meeting is kind of our community bulletin board. We'd like to take the opportunity to be sure to have Bryce Bunker join us, who is currently the owner and president of Bunker Family Funerals and Cremation here at Gilbert Memorial Park, which there are many of you out there that may not know that there's a cemetery in Gilbert, but Bryce and his family have started a memorial park, and we want to have Bryce take a few minutes to talk about what he's doing. Bryce.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Council, and especially all of those who have had a few minutes to speak today. Pastor Miller, appreciated your words and your message of hope, and appreciated that, and certainly learned a lot from it. But as Mayor Anderson mentioned, we are Gilbert Memorial Park. You've probably heard before that Gilbert was the most populated municipality in the United States without a cemetery up until last November, when we had our grand opening, and we're fortunate and blessed to be able to start serving the residents of Gilbert and surrounding communities. So just a little bit about us. I'll be brief, of course, but we're a fourth generation family-owned business. We are born and raised right here in the East Valley, and this has been home for a long time, and will continue to be home for a long time. And we've been really fortunate and blessed to be embraced by the community and be able to serve the people of Gilbert thus far, and has exceeded our expectations of what we've been able to accomplish in a short period of time. But wanted to touch briefly on a couple of things that Pastor Miller said that struck a chord with me. He talked about his vision of heaven and not being in sections where a certain group of people are here and a certain group of people are there. And as we went through the process of designing Gilbert Memorial Park, we were very intentional about being diverse and being a place where no matter what the background of the individual and the family was from, that they had a place where they could come and feel peace and a sense of hope and strength. And that not only did the surroundings of Gilbert Memorial Park feel like that, but that our staff echoed those same sentiments and same messages and feelings with the way that we communicated and served the people. And so you'll notice as you come to Gilbert Memorial Park, we don't have sections. We don't have certain areas that are for certain groups of people and others that are for others. We want it to be a place where everyone can come and feel that peace and feel that strength. And that's why our team that we put together for the design process, we were intentional about having them come from a variety of backgrounds and belief systems and cultures, so that we made sure that the experience was one that could be encouraging and hopeful for all those that come and attend. And again, I want to be brief. I know I just have a couple of minutes here, but we want you to know we're here to support you. We're so grateful for each of you who are in the faith community and the strength that you are to people, especially during one of the most difficult moments of their life and losing a loved one. I want you to know we're here to support you and to support the families, of course, that we're serving. And if we can work together and work as a team, then we know that we provide a better service to the families who have lost somebody. Please come visit us. Come stop in at any time. We're on Queen Creek Road between Val Vista and Greenfield, just kitty corner of Perry High School. And we want to be a resource for you, and we want to be helpful to you, and do all we can to make Gilbert an even better place to be and to live. And just appreciative of the opportunity. We love Gilbert, and we are here to help any way we can. So I'll keep it brief at that, but thank you so much for the time today and for the thoughts that have been shared.
Well, at this point, as I said, we're sensitive to time and your time, and we're right about the hour. So I want to thank you all for participating. I'm especially thankful for the comments that we received from Pastor Miller today. I think that's given us an opportunity to think about a lot of things and take some action. Some of the comments that I've heard have been inspiring to help us move in the right direction. You know, Gilbert has been recognized for many things, but a lot of what we have in Gilbert are just things like the water tower and the downtown, and those are the things. But Gilbert is the people that live here, and you are the people that work directly with them, and we thank you for those efforts and recognize that is what makes Gilbert strong, and that's what we recognize Gilbert as. Gilbert are the people that you serve and that we try to serve. So thank you for tuning in today, and thank you for all the efforts that you do out in the faith community. We look forward to doing this again next year, and please stay tuned for some other actions that we as a council will take to address the very issue that Pastor Miller was talking about, that we'd like to be proactive and watch for other things happening in the community to do that. So unless any other council members have any other comments to share. Thank you and for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.